First and foremost, all praises are due to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and bishops of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the brothers around the four corners of the earth who are teaching this word and truth and sincerity. And shalom to the hopeful elect, a few men, women, and children that believe in this word. This is your brother Kawat Sabah coming at you with another lesson. This one is entitled, "The Full Storehouses Shall Suddenly Be Found Empty." And that's going to be due to what? The high tariffs that Trump put on China, Canada, and Mexico, and specifically China, are going to eventually have an effect on the U.S. economy as far as empty shelves and things of that nature. So I found an article from the New York Times, and it is entitled, "A Tidal Wave of Change is Headed for the U.S. Economy." And we know this is all directly related to what? To prophecy. And we're on the cusp of what? Jacob's trouble. So chaos has to be incited. And one way you incite chaos is what? By emptying the stores of food, because people will start to fight, and people that are hungry will do anything to eat. So this is going to cause a massive amount of chaos, known as Jacob's trouble in the scriptures: famine of food, race riots, civil war, anarchy, sedition against the government. So this is all being set up by the elites of the Edomites, the international bankers, in order to bring about what? The MOTB. You have to bring people to their knees and bring chaos, incite riots, etc., and then people will be more akin to receiving that MOTB. But those of us who are part of the elect, we say hope for elect and humility. We know what's going on. We're being circumspect, we're watching, and we know the plans that the elites of the Edomites have. But really, the ultimate plan is being issued forth by who? By Yahweh, the Most High. So let's read a little bit of this article, and we'll get a couple of scriptures. So it says here, from the New York Times, the title says, "A tidal wave of change is headed for the U.S. economy. American consumers are not yet seeing much evidence of the drastic changes President Trump has made on trade, but they are on their way. When the COVID pandemic hit, factories in China shut down and global shipping traffic slowed. Within a matter of a few weeks, products began disappearing from the U.S. store shelves, and American firms that depend on foreign materials were going out of business." So this was also pre-planned as well by the elites of the Edomites as a prelude for the times that we're coming into. Let's continue to read. "A similar trend is beginning to play out, but this time the catalyst is President Trump's decision to raise tariffs on Chinese imports to a minimum of 145%, an amount so steep that much of the trade between the United States and China has ground to a halt." And this is being purposely done by the elites of the Edomites. "Fewer massive container ships have been plying the ocean between Chinese and American ports, and in the coming weeks, far fewer Chinese goods will arrive on American shores. While high tariffs on Chinese products have been in place since early April, the availability of Chinese products and the price that consumers pay for them has not changed that much. So we haven't seen the effects yet, but within the next month, next 2 months, you're going to see the effects. But some companies are now starting to raise their prices, and experts say that the effects will become more and more obvious in the coming weeks as a tidal wave of change stemming from canceled orders in Chinese factories works its way around the world to the United States. The number of massive container ships carrying metal boxes of toys, furniture, and other products departing China for the United States plummeted by about a third in April. Let's read this here. The last paragraph here I'll read. The reason consumers haven't felt many of the effects yet is because it takes 20 to 40 days for a container ship to travel across the Pacific Ocean. It then takes another 1 to 10 days for Chinese goods to make their way by train or truck to various cities around the country. Economists at Apollo Global Management wrote in a recent report. That means that the higher tariffs on China that went into effect at the beginning of April are just starting to result in a drop in the number of ships arriving at American ports, a trend that should intensify. So the ports all around the United States are beginning to be empty because many of the things we get here in the country came from China. So we will begin to see the effects within a few weeks. And this will bring about what? Calamities. Okay? People making panic runs at the stores, so on and so forth. So we are headed towards the full storehouses being found suddenly empty. And we know that Trump just passed, it's not called the Innocence Act, but what it is it's kind of cloaked in allowing him to initiate procedures to go into the inner cities and various cities to protect the innocent. But that's a cloak, okay, for them to go into the inner cities to come after Jake. So they're going to give what? Cops full immunity. They're also going to allow militias to set up posses. So that's reminiscent of what? The Purge. Because he knows, and the elites know, that once you take food off the shelves and you have limited supplies, that people are going to panic. So they want to set up what? Posses, police, lockdowns, okay, martial law. They already have UN troops here already in the United States, okay, ready to come at the American citizens. So all this is being set up. So let's get a couple of scriptures here real quick. Let's go to 2nd Esdras. Actually, let's go to Jeremiah 30. Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 5. So everything is being set up for Jacob's trouble. Jeremiah 30 and verse 5, and it reads the NLT. Let's read it in the NLT. Jeremiah 30 and verse 5, the NLT. This is what the Lord says. I hear cries of fear. There is terror and no peace. So empty shelves, families not being able to get the food supplies they need is going to bring about what? Cries of fear and terror and no peace. And people will start rioting. People will start robbing each other. Even people who are friends will start going at each other. You have people that are prepping to take away goods from preppers, okay? So you already have the militants set up, all right, that are going to go after people who have been storing away food. Let's read verse 60 NLT. Now let me ask you a question. Do men give birth to babies? Then why do they stand there ashen-faced, hands pressed against their sides like a woman in labor? Because we're coming into those times, okay? People not having enough food to eat, people robbing and stealing, people killing. Let's read verse 7, Jeremiah 30, verse 7 in NLT. In all history, there has never been such a time of terror. It will be a time of trouble for my people in Israel, known as Jacob's trouble. Yet in the end, they will be saved. That's speaking of the elect. We say the hope for electing humility, but the elect will be saved in these times that we're coming into because of their faith in Yahweh, because of their faith in Yahushai. All right, so we're hoping that we are part of the elect, and our faith, we hope that will save us from the calamities coming up during Jacob's trouble, which will lead into what? The implementation of the MOTB, which will lead into World War III, which will lead into the day of the Lord when Yahushua comes back on the planet Earth. And as he's coming back, the nuclear missiles will be launched from Russia and the other nations towards Babylon, America on the day of the Lord, also known as what? Judgment Day. All right. So let's go to 2nd Esdras chapter 16. Excuse me. The voice is a little bit scratchy here. 2nd Esdras 16 and verse 17. 2nd Esdras 16 and verse 17, and it reads, Woe is me, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? So this is the prophet Ezra speaking of the times that we're coming into. All right, because he's saying, who's going to deliver me in those days? Meaning, he's saying he knew about reincarnation. So the prophet Ezra is here now again. So he's saying, woe is me. He's seen the visions. Woe is me, woe is me. Who will deliver me in those days? Jacob's trouble, a time like no other. So he continues, says here, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings. The beginning of famine, okay, due to the shelves being emptied. The beginning of famine and great death. People killing, robbing, stealing. The beginning of wars. You have various small wars going on now. In the Ukraine with Russia, many Ukrainians are being killed, but the media, the U.S. media, is not reporting that. You have what's going on with Taiwan and China. All these things, okay, are beginning to inflame, are beginning to catch fire. The beginning of wars and the power shall stand in fear. The beginning of evils, what shall I do when these evils shall come? So those of us who are part of this, of the elect, we say the hope for electing humility, we're going to depend on Yahweh, okay, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, through faith. We're going to stand in righteousness. Those of us who are Hebrew Israelites, who are known as the remnant, the Lord's going to save a remnant of Hebrew Israelites, so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans here in Babylon, America, and scattered throughout the world like the sand of the seashore. So we're coming into these times. Let's read verse 19. The times of what? Behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. So really, Jacob's trouble is intended for 2/3 of our people who are not going to hearken to this word. But it's also going to affect what? Esau, these Edomites, so-called white man, the devil, these other nations, the Moabites, so-called Chinese, the Ishmaelites, so-called Arabs, all right? The Hamites, so-called Africans, so on and so forth. Let's read verse 22. For many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. And we know Esau, the so-called white man, okay, the sons of the wicked, was given the power of the sword, all right? So like I said, Trump just passed this law where he's going to give cops immunity to do whatever they want. People are going to be able to set up posses, militants. He's going to be able to send in what? UN troops in the military for lockdowns and martial law, because he knows in the elites of the Edomites who are directing Trump, Trump is nothing but a puppet, okay, who's being directed by the elites of the Edomites, the international bankers. So they're calling all the shots. So they know chaos is coming. When people are starving, they'll do anything to feed themselves and their families. So they have to set up what? Okay? They have to set up the sword. And we know Esau is a master of the sword. He was given the blessing of the sword by his father Isaac. So they're going to set up what? Checkpoints, martial law, posses, so on and so forth. They're going to go into the inner cities to mainly come after you Jakes who have not hearkened to this word of the Most High Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, despite him sending prophets to warn you to repent and convert and come back to the Lord, okay, before the times of Jacob's trouble start to heat up. So we've been giving you the warning, okay, to heed the word, to come back to the Lord in truth and sincerity, because we're going to be coming into some what? Into some rough times. It's going to be a lot of calamity out here, a lot of people dying. It's going to be like no time ever, okay? Nothing has ever been seen, okay, as the times that we're going to be coming into. Let's read this again. 2 Esdras 16 and verse 22. For many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine, shall starve to death, and the other that escape the hunger, those that are preppers, that have saved up food, okay, they may escape the hunger, but the sword will destroy them, okay? You have people that are going to be what? Specifically hunting, going door to door to steal what you have gathered up, okay? What you have stored up. Let's read verse 23. And the dead shall be cast out as dung. There's going to be millions upon millions of people dying here in Babylon, America, as well as in worldwide. Okay? Let's start again. And the dung shall be cast out as, and the dead shall be cast out as dung, and there shall be no man to comfort them. For the earth shall be wasted, and the cities shall be cast down. And so the elites of the Edomites, the international bankers, have to have this chaos to bring people to their knees in order to convince them to take that sea hip in Revelation 13 and verse 16. And people will be brought down to such a low state that they will do anything to end the chaos, to end the death, to end their hunger, all right? But the elect are not going to be food. We're going to depend on the Lord Yahweh, Bar Hashem Yahweh Shai, through faith to get through these times. So let's read, let's go to 2 Esdras 6, okay? 2 Esdras chapter 6, and let's read verse 18. And we'll cap it off with these few verses. 2 Esdras chapter 6, and let's go to verse 18. And it reads, Behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh and to visit them that dwell upon the earth. So those days are now, okay? The Lord is beginning to draw nigh by all these things that are happening. The tariffs, okay? This act that Trump passed, allowing posses to be developed, giving cops immunity, giving the military carte blanche to come into the inner cities, all right? So all these things are beginning to draw nigh. So we know the Lord Yahweh is really the real puppet master. Man's comings and goings of the Lord, how can he then understand his way? So he's really directing everybody on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. Let's read this again. Behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh and to visit them that dwell upon the earth. Let's read verse 19. And I will begin, okay, to make inquisition of them what they be that have hurt unjustly with their unrighteousness, and when the affliction of Zion shall be fulfilled. So the ultimate will of the Lord is what? Is to save his elect, okay? To bring punishment upon the heathens, starting with you goddamn Edomites, you devils, who have inflicted punishment upon his chosen, okay, the Hebrew Israelites. But he's only going to save a remnant on this side, 1/3 in Babylon, America, and then select elect throughout the world. Because most of our people are going to get caught up in the calamity of Jacob's trouble for not hearkening to this word, for not believing in Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, for not having faith in Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai. All right? Let's continue. Let's read verse 20. And when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished, then will I show these tokens. So this world, the world of Esau, is beginning to fade away to bring in the world of Jacob under the rulership of Yahweh Shai the Savior. All right? So let's read this again. And when the world, this age that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished, then will I show these tokens. The book shall be opened before the firmament, and they shall see all together. Let's read verse 22. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. So we know they've been burning farms since the pandemic, okay? Not allowing farmers to keep seeds, you see? Giving us the GMO foods, poison in the air, poison in the water, doing all types of calamities, okay? So he's going to make the what? The storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. So these tariffs are going to begin to have a deep impact in the next month, 2 months, 3 months. So it's being done purposely. Let's read this again. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. The store is empty in the shelves, so on and so forth. Prices going up. A loaf of bread, 15, 20 bucks. Verse 23, and the trumpet shall give a sound, which when every man heareth, they shall suddenly be afraid. So those of us who are part of the hope for elect, we understand what's going on. We have faith. We're loving that this is happening because we know eventually it's going to bring about what? Yahushua coming back down in righteousness as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So we understand the will of the Lord. So we want to be in sync and aligned with the will of the Lord. So we are grateful that all these things are happening. We don't love this world, okay? We hate this world. We hate going to work. We hate paying rent, okay? We hate these goddamn devils, these Edomites. So we want everything that's beginning to happen with the tariffs, the empty shelves, famine, all right? Race riots, civil war, sedition amongst men, okay? AKA Jacob's trouble. We are cheering that this is happening because we know eventually it's going to lead to what? The fruition of the kingdom, okay, of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Let me read this again. Let's read this again. 2 Esdras 6 and verse 22. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. And the trumpet shall give a sound, which when every man heareth, they shall be suddenly afraid. Okay? And it's not a coincidence that that Trump's name is Trump, okay? All right? He's the cruel leader that's going to help bring about Jacob's trouble. 24. 2 Esdras 6 and verse 24. At that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies. Like that movie, Leave the World Behind on Netflix. And the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein. The springs of the fountains shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run. A lot of people don't understand the water system is now hooked up, okay, through electricity. So let's say we have an EMP attack, okay, electromagnetic pulse attack that may stop all the electricity, and we have blackouts, okay? Your phone isn't going to work. Your appliances are not going to work. You're not going to be able to get water because that's run through in most cities through electricity, okay? So the fountain shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run. So that's going to bring about what? Massive panic. You have blackouts. People are going to start what? Looting, robbing stores, robbing each other, so on and so forth. And then the elites of the Edomites can bring out their plan of what? Martial law, lockdowns, because of all the chaos. And then people are going to what? Put a vote of confidence in the MOTB that the elites of the Edomites already have set up. The radio frequency identification device. So on that note, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Rakakwadash. I hope this lesson was edifying to you. Shalom.